Israel is not a beachhead for Anglo-American imperialism. On the surface, it may appear that Israel is this forward base of the Anglo-American Empire in West Asia, as it occupies a key geographic location, and that it serves their imperial interests across the region by maintaining perpetual chaos, preventing the native peoples from uniting and regaining control over their resource-rich lands and determining their own futures. At least this is the main argument used to justify this claim. However, this is very easily picked apart upon closer observation. First of all, it presupposes that permanent chaos is in the interests of the empire. Also, it fails to address the Gulf states, which are not in a state of chaos. Quite the opposite. Most of the region is at peace. It is only where there is resistance that conflict and destruction persists. Ultimately, the empire does want order. But it wants order on its own terms, and before this can be attained, it demands the total submission of all native populations that fall under its hegemonic governance. And this has already been in large part achieved, with only a handful of countries that have not yet been pacified. The oil-rich Gulf countries have never been subjected to the destructive power of the imperial war machine. Why is that? Doesn't the empire need this to ensure control? No, it does not. It's actually an obstacle to its resource extraction operations. It's not possible to run oil and gas exploration and extraction in the middle of a war with bombs going off everywhere. The US does not need a fake democracy when it's already doing peaceful business with friendly Arab dictatorships. Israel plays zero role in the acquisition of oil from the Middle East. Israel is actually a detriment, as its very existence provokes and antagonizes its neighbors, making peace impossible. All the wars across the Middle East and North Africa have been the result of countries taking care of their own peoples, putting their interests ahead of that of the empires, and of course, of the Zionist occupation that calls itself Israel. From Libya to Iraq to Syria to Iran to Yemen. Putting the interests of one's own people ahead of that of the empire is absolutely unacceptable to Washington, D.C. and to Tel Aviv. If we observe the Zionist occupation, we can see that it occupies a very small coastal region of the eastern Mediterranean, which is strategic, as it could act as the first step to a land bridge. But it is not resource-rich. There are no oil reserves, no mineral deposits, and very little water. The Israeli occupation doesn't fight wars on behalf of the empire. No, it is the empire that fights on behalf of Israel. It is the empire that destabilizes uncompliant neighbors, as we've seen repeatedly over the decades. If creating permanent chaos in the countries that neighbor-occupied Palestine was truly the objective, then we would see wars in Egypt, Jordan, and even Saudi Arabia. And yet, these places remain at peace. We never see Israeli occupation armies launching large-scale invasions or toppling regimes, doing the dirty work of the empire. It is the empire doing the dirty work of the Zionist occupation, which is incapable of advancing even 500 meters into hostile territory, as we have already seen in Lebanon in 2006 and again in 2024. The IOF is not a fighting force. It is a terrorist organization that quickly ducktails and runs when there are opponents that shoot back. This idea that Israel is a proxy for the American empire is absolutely false. It serves no benefit. Not now, nor has it ever at any point since its wretched foundation in 1948. It is nothing but a liability. There is nothing practical about Israel. Why on earth would the US spend so much money on maintaining this artificial state for no return? Does Israel plunder the region of natural resources and send it all to the US? No, it is the US that loots West Asia, giving all of it to Israel. So, the question is, why does the empire prop it up and invest so heavily in the protection of this colony, sacrificing thousands of its own citizens fighting wars for the benefit of Israel, and even tolerating direct hostile actions by the IOF? The answer is ideology and eschatology. It has nothing to do with resource extraction. It never has. This is about the ideology of a Jewish homeland built on the premise of biblical prophecy and the eschatological beliefs of Judaism, which have been mimicked by certain heretical sects of Protestantism that hold the same views and are essentially copies of Messianic Judaism. This idea that Israel is fulfilling biblical prophecy, which will bring about the end times, ushering in the Antichrist and the enslavement of humanity, is ultimately what drives the ruling elites. It's simply not enough to invoke the historical record of the British Mandate and the Balfour Declaration to understand the Zionist occupation correctly today. This was over 100 years ago, and things have changed since then. Also, the driving force behind Britain's capture of Palestine needs to be looked at a little closer, as this reveals who was actually behind this venture. Not to mention that the British themselves were ousted by Jewish terrorists. Why would the Brits kick themselves out of a colony they fought so hard for? Even today, there are no US bases, let alone British ones, in Israel. Just about every country in the entire region has at least one US base. What kind of forward base or colony doesn't have military assets, soldiers, or residents of the empire? No, those are dual citizens. Citizenship is only available to Jews. Do Israeli politicians pay homage to the USA by wearing a cowboy hat and kissing the Statue of Liberty or Mount Rushmore? Do they have US lobby handlers and donors that demand unconditional support for the USA? Do they lose their jobs if they criticize America? Does the Knesset fly the American flag? Is there a powerful America lobby that predetermines Israeli elections? Do Christians get to make aliyah to Israel and become full citizens while maintaining dual citizenship? Are Christians protected by special laws? If Israel were such an important asset to the American empire, why then is there a need for this powerful lobby known as AIPAC for the purpose of coercing US politicians through bribery and blackmail? If Israel truly held strategic value in West Asia, everyone in the political class would voluntarily support Zionism without question.